For the second tutorial, now once we've set up Open WebUI, we want to add some models in order to converse with them. So the first thing we can do, since we installed Olama, we can go into the admin console, connections, and handle the connection to Olama. So because we used a Docker container in the same network, we simply have to enter this address, save, and then we can pull models from Olama. So for that, we first need models. And after refreshing, we now have access to our Llama 3 models. However, you might not want to store a local model and might want to use online models such as OpenAI, Google Gemini, and Mistral. There are several ways to use those. The first one is for OpenAI, you simply go to the administrative panel and then connections. There is, if the API is compatible with OpenAI, you simply have to enter here the address and your API key. However, some are not compatible, and for those you need to use either pipe functions, but I'll come back to that later, or you can use pipelines. So for pipelines, it's a bit different. We first need, once again, to create a new Docker container to handle a pipeline. Why? Because a pipeline is simply another service that Open WebUI will call, and this service will be a mediator between Open WebUI and the LLM's APIs. Therefore, if there's a problem in the communication, what crashes is only the pipelines, and Open WebUI is still working, and you can use that to converse with other models which may not use a pipeline while you're repairing it. So first, we need to create a container for pipelines. So to install pipelines, we can simply do that in Docker. Uh, we use a Docker container with the official image of pipelines, and we add a dependency to Open WebUI in pipelines. Then we simply have to restart the Docker container, so Docker Compose down there, and then Docker Compose up once again. Now that started, we need to to connect to the pipelines. Um, so we need to connect because we put everything down. And once we're in the admin panel, you go in connections, and instead of OpenAI connection, you simply enter http dot slash slash pipelines dot 9099, and then the password is the base password for OpenWebUI. When you install the pipeline like this, you can change it, of course, in the variables. And if you want to keep an OpenAI connection, you can always add a connection and add another one. Once your pipeline is set up, you have two ways of uploading pipelines. Either from a Python file that you code yourself, or from GitHub. However, on GitHub, it may be dangerous because it's open source, so you don't know who you can trust, but you still can go to the official GitHub repository of pipelines in Open WebUI. There are some examples for some pipelines. Uh, One of them, for instance, is the Azure Manifold Pipelines to use Azure OpenAI. Um, so here you go to the official pipelines GitHub in examples, pipelines, providers, and then you have the Azure OpenAI manifold pipeline. And you simply have to copy paste the URL, save, uh, sorry, upload it, and then you have to modify the valves. So those are mostly the name of your endpoints and resources. So those are things you have to setup depending on your account. So here, the most important is the Azure OpenAI API key and the Azure OpenAI endpoint. Most of the time, it will only be to enter an endpoint or only an API key. And then you can save it and you can later on access the models. For some pipelines, once it's online, so you need to select to create Python pipeline yourself.